Good morning, agents, and welcome to another daily episode of Targeted Loot Today for Saturday, December 19th. In this series, we cover a lot from the Targeted Loot map to DZ exclusives you could farm for, highlights from the weekly vendor resets, build and farming suggestions, and much more. I'm Agent Shadow, and if you enjoyed this video, consider pressing the subscribe and like buttons below. It helps me out a lot, and remember to comment below if you have any questions whatsoever. Otherwise, let's get this video started. Alright guys, so starting off with the dark zones and of course vendor reset highlights, which will always be in the bottom left overlay, as well as Cassie, but unfortunately I went to check Cassie and her items were just out of stock. It says she closes in an hour, but I think that's bugged. Otherwise guys, really the only thing I'd really recommend, since that Cassie is closed and the Force Multiplier backpack with Perfect Combined Arms is not available anymore this week, I would definitely go check out at the campus. There is a Punch Drunk Mass, which is pretty much god rolled. I believe the 12% crit hit damage is god rolled, and so is of course the 20% headshot damage. You just got to reroll the weapon damage to 15% weapon damage. Now moving on to targeted loot for the dark zone, starting off in DZ West, we got Wyvernware. So of course this is where you could farm for the Claws Out holster with 500% melee damage and of course 10% pistol damage rolled onto it, and it's definitely worth it for all you shield build users out there. Next up in DZ South, 511 Tactical is targeted loot, and this is possibly one of my favorite DZ exclusives there is, besides the gift of course. And that's going to be the Death Grip gloves. They come with 10% armor on kill, which was buffed from 5% back in TU10 I believe. And one of my absolute, I would say my favorite build, even still in TU12, is going to be in the top right card now, the build video for it. And it utilizes Hunter's Fury with the Death Grips and the Memento backpack. And the only thing different now is I use the Dark Winter and the Scorpio instead of whatever I used before, which was the Mop, I believe, with 10% armor on kill. Now, of course, in DZ East, the last thing we got to farm for today in the Dark Zones is going to be the Emperor's Guard knee pads with 1% armor regen. That's once again another great, piece that you want to grab that's a Dark Zone exclusive. And I guess you could use it as a shield build user. I mean, you can mix it with 4 pieces of Foundry Bulwark, a few pieces of Bellstone Armory, or, that's pretty much it though, really. That's what I would recommend for using that. Otherwise, let's go check out now what we got on the north side. Alright guys, now starting off in the north side targeted loot highlights, I just want to mention once again, Grand Washington Hotel is invaded this week for a few more days, so you definitely want to check that out if you need to get Puck's blueprint to craft the Nemesis. Now, like I always tell you guys, go down to mission settings right here and then go to toggle mission mode once you've completed it the first time on invaded and if it hasn't dropped, so that way you can toggle it back to invaded and then try to refarm for it again. It should drop within the first few times. Now keep in mind though that you do need to at least have gotten the designated hitter that Wyvern drops, the boss at the very end of Tidal Basin Stronghold when it's invaded. And you have to deconstruct the designated hitter to get the tally, which is a scope, exotic part for the Nemesis. And you need that before you craft it, but you should still be able to get the blueprint. Now back to normal targeted loot, we got Hunter's Fury over here at Camp White Oak today. This is one of my favorite gear sets. I always recommend farming for it. And it can be a little tough because I'm always looking for something with like max crit hit chance or crit hit damage. And then I want to re-roll usually 3 of those pieces for 170k armor. And I definitely use that on my Hunter's Fury build. And I'll put another build with Hunter's Fury in the top right card now if you want to try something that has a lot more DPS but less armor on kill. Next up, we got chest pieces at Coney Island Ballpark. Now there's 2 exotic chest pieces you can farm for, the Tardigrade and the Ridgeway's Pride. Of course, with the Ridgeway's Pride, you do need to complete Summit on normal, hard, challenging, heroic, and legendary difficulties and get all difficulty level exotic components. Then you need to complete floor 100 after that to get the project, and the project is 2 parts. The first part being that you do need at least to donate the 0F's chest piece with Perfect Unbreakable on it, and the second one just has you killing like 3 of certain things. And then really that's about it. I mean, backpack targeted loot at Coney Island Amusement Park, you could refarm the Memento backpack, or if you're looking for a specific named backpack, I would just farm the brand, not the type, but that's up to you, of course. And then for Sokolov Concern at Manning National Zoo, you always want 1 to 3 pieces of this for any SMG build, except for Hunter's Fury, because you want more Hunter's Fury than Sokolov. You at least want like 1 piece. And for the chest and backpack pieces, I would definitely want to run Obliterate, Intimidate. And then, of course, for the backpack, I would run around Vigilance or Adrenaline Rush for sure. So that's something you want to look out for, is Sokolov chest and backpack pieces. And then Kinley College is, of course, closed. And the Summit, you pick your own targeted loot. So now let's go check out what we got on the west side. Alright agents, now starting off on the west sides with gear sets first, we got Aces and Eights at DARPA Research Labs. Now Aces and Eights is a great headshot damage build, so what you want to do is mix 3 pieces of Aces and Eights with 2 pieces of Aralda Holding, 1 being a backpack with Composure or Vigilance, and the Chain Killer chest piece with Perfect Headhunter. I really like this build. It's not super hard to, put together. You want to roll headshot damage and weapon handling and weapon damage all over it, and it really hits hard, usually up to 20 million with the Mantis. Next up, we got Negotiator's Dilemma at West Atomic Park. Now, I got a double LMG build I'll put in the top right card that utilizes 4 pieces of Negotiator's Dilemma, Grupo Sombro Gloves, and the Coyote's Mask, and double LMGs, one being the Pestilence, and the damage tick from the Pestilence can get over 1 million when fully stacked, and it's a great crowd control and DPS build, solo and even in group as well. For ongoing directive at DCD HQ, now this is something new. What I would recommend for ongoing directive is using the Scorpio exotic shotgun, which you can obtain from season level 50 or 55. Mix 4 pieces of ongoing directive, a Badger Tough backpack with Creeping Death, and the Vile Mask. It actually pretty much makes heroic content more like story mode. It's really fun. I don't think it's as good as Hunter's Fury with the Scorpio, but it's pretty entertaining. Next up, we got Hardwired at Bank HQ. I might start skipping Hardwired. What I would recommend is using the Rigor set, anyway, since they messed up Hardwired mini title updates ago. And they took the reset cooldown completely away from it, and they gave it a 30-second cooldown instead. But with Rigor, you can actually get the cooldown instantly dealt with, so I would just recommend Rigor over this. And of course, the new Assault Turret Striker Drone build, I'll put in the top right card now for my favorite skill damage build in TU12. And that's going to overshadow the 3-piece Hardwired, 2-piece Hana-U, 1-piece Wyvernware build I mentioned, long time ago. Last 2, we got Strikers at Downtown West. Now, Strikers, I only recommend using 3 pieces. 4 pieces just does not do enough damage, and on, average, your accuracy is never going to be high enough, even on PC, to utilize 100%, stacks. I think that Hunter's Fury is now the successor of Strikers, so I just don't see any reason to use this, besides 3 pieces for rate of fire and weapon handling. For, of course, like a Merciless, really. Otherwise, I don't recommend it, or maybe an LMG build. And then lastly, we got Foundry Bulwark at West End. Now, Foundry Bulwark's a great tank build. You can tank absurd amounts of damage for Legendary and Raids, so that's really all I ever use it for, and I rarely ever do anyway. For normal targeted loot, we got holsters over here at Federal Emergency Bunker. Now, there's 2 exotic holsters you can farm for. That's the Imperial Dynasty holster for skill damage and status effects, and then the Dodge City holster for DPS builds, pistol builds, and headshot damage builds as well. For the named holster you can get in the light zone, that would be the Forge holster, and that's going to give you 50% shield health, which is equivalent to a whole extra skill tier of shield health. Alright guys, next up, over here in Constitutional Hall, we got Bellstone Armory as targeted loot. Now you can get the Everyday Carrier with Perfectly Efficient. It's a named chest piece that does drop in the light zone. While I never really use that, I don't entirely recommend it unless maybe you could, comment below and let me know exactly why you use that chest piece. But remember though that the Liquid Engineer with Perfect Bloodsucker is a DZ only, so you cannot get it outside of the Dark Zone unless it's from like a seasonal named item cache or something like that. And really, the last 2 things I would recommend is Douglas and Harding at Tidal Basin, but I just really strongly recommend you go to the campus and just buy a Punch Drunk Mask with that 20% headshot damage. There's really no point in farming for it if you're already going to get a God rolled one from just buying it from the vendor. And then the last one I'm going to recommend is MMRs at Roosevelt Island. Now, of course, you have 2 exotics, the Mantis and the Nemesis. Both are extremely worth getting. But remember, the Nemesis, you need to craft the blueprint first before it joins the general targeted loot pool, just like any other quest exotic. And then, of course, the Mantis you could just straight up farm for. Now, for named MMRs, what I would recommend is getting the White Death or Ekim's Long Stick with Perfect Ranger. Otherwise, now let's go check out what we got on the east side. Alright agents, now we're over here on the east side targeted loot highlights, and it looks like we actually have no gear sets over here, which is great news, honestly, in my opinion. Now, first off, at Grand Washington Hotel, we do have Providence Defense, so if you guys want to farm for that Sacrifice of Perfect Glass Cannon, I would highly recommend farming for it, and not just for your DPS builds, but also for a skill damage build. It actually works pretty well. While I don't personally like Glass Cannon or even Perfect Glass Cannon, I would rather just roll a weapon damage core on one of my Empress pieces. I just, you can farm for this if you like Glass Cannon and you want to put it on your skill build. Next up, we got rifle targeted loot over here at Judiciary Square. Now, there's 2 exotic rifles you could farm for, the Merciless and the Diamondback, both of which I honestly never recommend, really. But what I do recommend is some named rifles, like the Surge with Perfect Spike, and the Baker's Dozen with Lucky Shot. Both of those I still believe are highly worth farming for. Now, moving on over here to District Union Arena, we got Petrov as targeted loot, so you can farm for the Contractor's Gloves with 8% damage to armor. Definitely always worth farming for. And of course, you can put that on any LMG build, or if you want to stack damage to armor with 2 pieces of Walker Harrison Co., that is also something you can do, and even run the Lady Death or an assault rifle with it, or LMG even. Now, here's something that I really wanted to point out today. Jefferson Trade Center, we got mass targeted loot, so if you guys are looking for that Coyotes mask, today is the day to farm for it. This is actually where the Coyotes mask drops its main source from the boss Coyote at the end of Jefferson Trade Center. And Coyote's mask is something that is almost mandatory on a lot of DPS builds. The only DPS builds I don't use it on is my Hunter's Fury or True Patriot build. Otherwise, Coyote's mask is so useful, and it's great for all allies too. Now, the other exotic mask you could farm for is the Vile mask, and of course that debuff is pretty strong if you mix it with the Demolitionist spec, which you can increase the debuff damage from it quite a bit. Otherwise, that's pretty much all I really recommend for masks. Next up, we got Empress over here at Federal Triangle. Now, there's 2 new named Empress pieces. I'm sure you've gotten the battery pack. I think that one has Perfectly Calculated. There's a chest piece as well with Perfectly Skilled. Those are 2 ones that you can farm for as well, and they both drop in the light zone. Next up, we got gloves at Capitol Building Stronghold. Now, for gloves, the only thing you can really recommend is BTSU gloves. I mean, there's no other exotic gloves out there, and the BTSU gloves definitely have their place, especially if you have a team of skill builds, for getting overcharged quite a bit. But with the introduction of the mechanical animal, in-sync, all that good stuff, the capacitor, there's just, there's a lot of reasons to use it, and there's a lot of alternatives to it as well. So you could farm for it if you want. Last 2 things I'm going to recommend today in the east side is going to be Walker Harrison Co. at Southwest. You could farm for the Chain Killer chest piece with Perfect Headhunter on it. Always worth getting because it's just basically mandatory on any headshot damage build. And remember though that the Matador with Perfect Adrenaline Rush is a Dark Zone exclusive. You need to wait for Backpack targeted loot or Walker Harrison Co. targeted loot in the Dark Zones to get them. Last but not least, in east side, we got shotguns at Jefferson Plaza. Now, there's 2 exotic shotguns in this game now. We got Sweet Dreams with the Sandman talent, and of course the Scorpio. Now, the Scorpio completely overshadows the Sweet Dreams in my opinion, and the Sweet Dreams I never use on a skill build or DPS build, but it is great for that one-hit melee kill for red and purple barred enemies. But I would just highly recommend the Scorpio. You can stun lock enemies, you can use it with the ongoing directive build, you can use it with the Hunter's Fury build. It just does so much damage too. It does 1.1 million with my DPS build. And of course it puts them in shock, septic shock, confusion. It just runs the gamut of all status effects. And then after you shoot them quite a bit, you get a 20% damage buff, debuff on the enemy. It really makes these rogue encounters in Summit just feel like almost a joke. It's really fun, actually. As far as the 3 best shotguns in the game, like I always mention, I'm going to say the Mob with 10% armor on kill, the Custom M870, and the Marine Super 90 with close and personal rolled on them. Otherwise, that's all I could really recommend over here, without making the video 30 minutes long. So now let's go check out what we got in New York City targeted loot highlights before we end the video. Alright guys, now we're over here finally at New York City targeted loot highlights, so let's get started because we got quite a bit over here. Now starting off with gear sets, we got Future Initiative at Wall Street. Now Future Initiative is a great healer set, but keep in mind, just like Foundry Bulwark, the chest and backpack are raid exclusive to the Iron Horse raid. Now in lieu of that, if you haven't run the raid, I would recommend an Alp Summit chest piece and backpack with Safeguard and Empathetic Resolve on them. That is a great healer build if you don't have the chest and backpack for Future Initiative. Now moving on over here, we got Civic Center area with Tip of the Spear. I still haven't tried out that 4-piece with the Memento backpack and the Scorpio, I believe it was, that I was thinking of trying out. But if you guys have, please comment in the comment section below. Otherwise, I never really recommend this gear set. Last gear set we do have is True Patriot at the Tombs. Like always, I will put my True Patriot build in the top right card. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. 4 pieces of True Patriot, the Memento backpack, and a Sokolov chest piece with Intimidate on it. Run that with the Lady Death and the Dark Winter or the Scorpio now, which would be what I recommend for sure. And that thing is just a DPS tank hybrid that shreds through content solo and heroic, and you can tank so much damage that it's just absolutely almost makes you invincible on heroic. And even is usable in Legendary Summit solo, in my opinion. That's how I get through a lot of the Legendary Summit solo area floors. Now moving on to normal target loot, we got submachine guns and stranded tanker. Now there's 3 exotic submachine guns you could farm for in this game. That's the Chatterbox, the Backfire, and of course the Lady Death. Now, all three of those are definitely worth farming for. The Chatterbox is a quest-only exotic. If you haven't gotten that yet, if I have enough cards, I'll put in the top right card now of how to get it in about 5 minutes, so definitely check that out. Otherwise, the Backfire and the Lady Death are both highly worth farming for, so I would check that out for sure and farm this area. And you can also get a chance for the Imperial Dynasty holster to drop here too. And of course, remember that the Dark Winter and the Apartment are Dark Zone exclusive submachine guns. You know, you can farm SMG targeted loot in the Dark Zone when it's, you know, the day for that, and they'll eventually drop. But otherwise, you can get them from manhunt targets, seasonal reward caches, named item projects, rewards. But, you know, that's just really, really rare though. The named SMGs that I would recommend farming for outside of the Dark Zone that do drop in the Light Zone would be the Safety Distance with Perfect Outsider and the Grudge with Perfect Vindictive. Both of those are great named SMGs besides the Dark Winter and the Apartment. Next up, we got Hana Yu at Pathway Park. Now, of course, everybody needs this backpack for Title Update 12, the Force Multiplier backpack with Perfect Combined Arms. That's 30% skill damage every 3 seconds you land a shot, and you mix it with the capacitor, and then of course, you know, Empress and all that good stuff, the waveform. I mean, you're doing basically, I think it's over 200% skill damage, if I remember correctly, 150% at least from just the talents on that build. So this is definitely probably the most sought after backpack in Title Update 12 for sure. And then we got Overlord at Liberty Island. This is where you could farm for the Fox's Prayer knee pads with 8% damage to targets out of cover. I always recommend farming the brand, not the type. So of course you could get the Fox's Prayer knee pads in DZ East, but I don't recommend it. I recommend getting this at Liberty Island today. Last two I could recommend is Light Machine Guns and Financial District. There's two exotic light machine guns you could farm for, the Bullet King and the Pestilence, and I think the Pestilence is definitely worth farming for. The Bullet King as well, but the base damage is a little bit lower, but hey, you never have to reload, so it's useful in DPS and skill and tank builds as well. And then of course the Pestilence just can have an amazing damage tick of over 1 million, and it hits pretty hard too. And if you throw some weapon handling on it, it's definitely worth, you know, using. As far as named LMGs, what I really like is the Carnage with Perfect Sadist, and I believe there's one in the DZ East vendor this week if you want to check that out. And then of course you got the Good Times with Perfect Fast Hands, I believe, and then there's the New Reliable Perfectly Optimized, and several others like the Quiet Roar that are probably worth farming for. And then the last one we got is Assault Rifles over here at Battery Park area. Now there's two exotic Assault Rifles now, that's the Capacitor, and then of course you can get the Chameleon with Adaptive Instincts. Both of those are highly worth farming for. The Chameleon is great on that True Patriot build I mentioned earlier. Just swap out that Sokolov chest piece with Intimidate with a Fenris piece with Intimidate, and it shreds through content. Not as much as the SMG build, but just about. And then of course for the Capacitor, you definitely want to get that, but that's from Summit Challenges. You need to complete 5 Summit Challenges. You can do that fairly quickly in a couple hours or less. For the named Assault Rifles, I would recommend the new Tusk Subject with Perfectly in Sync, the Mechanical Animal of Future Perfection, the Burnout named FAMAS, and the Maniac named Military AKM. And then of course the best assault rifles you can get, the best, you know, archetypes for the assault rifles would be the FAMAS, the Military AKM, the Carbine 7, the Police M4, and I think the new PDR as well. But yeah guys, that's about it that I can recommend for New York City targeted loot. Alright agents, well that was the targeted loot for today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed my content, remember, please subscribe, like, and share. That would be great, it really helps me out. If you'd like to become a member for support and exclusive perks, you can click the join button below, as well as some Shadow Gaming merch, and all those good links will be in the pinned comment below. Actually, just me and my wife got the hat in the mail the other day, and I really like this hat and the hoodie as well. And then of course I did want to bring this up. I haven't put out a video in about I think 4 days, and I apologize for that guys. Things have been pretty rough lately, and it's just been really busy to be totally honest. It's been difficult to record in the morning as well, so that's why I haven't been able to upload a video lately, so sorry about that guys. Anyway guys, if you're still watching this video right now to the end, thank you so much. That's truly the best way to support me. I appreciate it. I work hard on my content every morning. Even if I take 3 or 4 days of a break, I'm still back and I'm still working hard on this stuff. Anyway guys, take care. Be sure to stay tuned for more daily Division 2 content. This is Agent Shadow signing off. I will see you in the next video. Take care agents.